Sue Carter is the vice chair of one of the biggest and most prestigious honey shows in the world. She's a qualified honey judge who is known from Chile to Turkey, and she's a beekeeper. She's probably the first person who told St. Lucia that its honey was something internationally unique, but originally she wasn't even supposed to be here.
Well, it was 4 years ago at the first Tuanora honey show, and I was really fortunate to be invited because a good friend of mine was actually invited and he couldn't make it, so I got invited instead. And so that was my first experience of St. Lucian honey.
She took bottles of honey from the island, brought them to England and entered them in the world's biggest honey competition.
And I was really impressed, particularly with the exhibits that we had from Johnson Stanley and from Vincent Clark. They were really outstanding flavoured honeys with a really good texture and a long aroma and flavour to them. So I took them to the National Honey Show in England and entered those for them into the show, and both of them won first prizes in different classes. So I was really delighted with that, and of course it made a huge impact to them as individuals back in St. Lucia, because they made the news, they made the press, and it's really encouraging for me.
The next year, St. Lucia won and placed in the top 5 in international categories. And the year after that, it happened again. It wasn't a fluke. St. Lucian honey was one of the best in the world. But what is it that makes St. Lucian honey so special?
Basically, all honey comes from the nectar that the bees collect from the plants. And so it must be your unique species of flora or fauna that you have got. So the unique trees, the mangoes, the mangroves, and all things like the logwood, trees like that are bringing in a specially flavoured nectar. That means that when the bees process it, you have a specially flavoured honey.
But if the tropical nectar that bees collect is what makes it so special, shouldn't all tropical countries have the same advantage that Lucian beekeepers have?
Technically they could, but obviously it's just a mix of those flowers, because not all flowers flower, not all plants flower when the bees are at a good state to go and collect the nectar. So you obviously have a flowering period when your bees are in a good state to go and collect. Because if it's wet, they obviously, like it is today, they obviously can't go and collect anything. So your bees must just be in a good state.
In fact, St. Lucia cannot rest on its laurels and take it for granted that nature has blessed it with wild flowers, forests and mangroves that help produce gold standard flavors in honey.
And often we find, like we found in St. Lucia, that there is some special honeys but we just haven't become experienced to them. We haven't had honey from some of the parts of Africa. So it could be just as good, but we don't know because we haven't experienced it.
After Vincent J. Clark won first prize in international competition this year, he called for a better land use policy to help beekeepers boost production while maintaining high quality and unique flavor. Sue Carter echoed his sentiments almost exactly.
Basically, you need to have a good distribution of hives. You need a good number of hives, and then you need to have good management of those hives. So there's no point having hundreds and thousands of hives and they're not being managed well.
St. Lucia is lucky to have the kind of flora and fauna that produce the best honey in the world. But the island's natural gifts are not enough to make the best honey in the world into a profitable export. Like a West Indian cricket team, the island's beekeepers have to become scientific in their methods to make the best of nature's gifts. Without training, investment, and the opening of forest reserves and mangroves to beekeepers, the island's honey could be overtaken once other tropical countries in Africa, Latin America, and South Asia learn that they too might have nature's gift of unique and varied nectar. For Choice News Now, I'm Jason Seaflin.